Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm Kerry. Today I'll be showing you how to crochet this duck. For the yellow duck, I used the same pattern but just used yellow for the head, neck, body and wing. And for the small duck, I used 4-ply crochet cotton. I'll be using 8-ply wool today, which is light worsted in the US and double knit in the UK. I've got green for the head, orange for the beak, brown for my main colour, and the white is for the neck. I've got brown thread and a needle to stitch the wing on, and the black thread is to stitch the bead on for the eye. I've got my scissors, a darning needle to weave in the ends, and I've got a 2.5mm crochet hook. Now I'll start on the head, so using my green I make a magic loop. For a magic loop I put my hook on my yarn with the short end up the top, and I bring the short end over the hook and bring the long end over the short end to make a circle, and then I bring a loop through my circle, and that's my magic loop. Now I work 2 chain. Now I'm going to work 15 double crochet into my circle. A double crochet is called a treble in the UK. For a double crochet, I put my yarn around the hook, I put my hook in through the circle from the front and bring through a loop, and then I put my yarn around the hook and take my hook with my yarn through 2 loops, yarn around the hook and take the hook with my yarn through the other 2 loops, and that's a double crochet. So yarn around my hook, hook in through the circle through the front and bring a loop back through, yarn around my hook, take it through 2 loops, yarn around the hook and take it through 2 more loops. So we need 15 double crochet, I need 13 more. Now I've worked my 15 double crochet into my circle. Now I take hold of the tail and I pull it tight. Now I work a slip stitch into the first stitch. So this stitch here, I insert my hook and yarn around the hook and bring the loop through the stitch and through the loop on my hook, and that's a slip stitch, and that's our first row complete. For row 2 we start with 1 chain and we work 1 single crochet into this same stitch as the chain. A single crochet, it's called a double crochet in the UK. For a single crochet we put our hook into the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn around and take our hook and yarn through the 2 loops. Now we work a single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So hook into the next stitch, bring through a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook and yarn through the 2 loops and 1 more single crochet. And if you were doing a duck in one colour, you wouldn't fasten off now, but because I'm going to join my white now, I fasten off. Now I'll just weave in these ends because it will make it easier for you to be able to see what I'm doing next. For the neck, using my white, I join my white wool in the top of the first single crochet, just that first stitch there, and work 2 chain. And then I work a half double crochet in the same stitch as the chain. A half double crochet is called a half treble in the UK. For a half double crochet, we put our yarn around the hook. We put our hook into the stitch. We'll be working it in the same stitch as a chain. And we bring up a loop and then put our yarn around the hook and take our hook with the yarn through all the loops. And now we work 2 half double crochet into each of the 2 remaining single crochet from the previous row. So yarn around the hook, hook into the stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook through all the loops and work another half double crochet into the same stitch. And then 2 half double crochet into our last stitch. And fasten off. And I'll just weave in these ends as well. Now for the body, I join my wool in the top of the 2 chain, so just in there on the right side. And I work 2 chain and work 1 half double crochet in the same stitch as a chain. And then I work 1 half double crochet into each stitch to the last stitch. The first one's a bit hard to get into, it's a bit close to the chain. And then into our last stitch we work 2 half double crochet. For row 2 we start with 2 chain and we turn our work over and we work 1 half double crochet into each stitch to the last stitch. and we work 2 half double crochet into the last stitch. For row 3 we start with 2 chain and turn, and we work 3 half double crochet into the first stitch, and then 1 half double crochet into each stitch to the end. For row 4 we start with 2 chain and turn, and we work 1 half double crochet into each stitch to the last stitch. And we work 3 half double crochet into the last stitch. And for row 5 we start with 2 chain and turn. We work 3 half double crochet into our first stitch, and 1 half double crochet into each stitch to the last 2 stitches. And we work a joined half double crochet over the last 2 stitches. For a joined half double crochet, we put our yarn around our hook, we put our hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop. Put our yarn around the hook, put our hook into the last stitch and bring up a loop. Yarn around the hook and take it through all the loops. And then we fasten off. Now I'll just weave in the ends, and I'll be back and we'll do a neatening row and the tail. For the neatening row we join our brown wool in the first stitch at the back of the body, just in there, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch up to the tail. Just find a suitable place to put your hook into, not too far from the edge. Once we get to the tail, we work 3 chain and work 1 double crochet in the same stitch as our last single crochet, and we fasten off. And that's the tail done. For the rest of the neatening row, we join our yarn in the stitch at the bottom of the tail, and continue around working 1 single crochet into each stitch. I'm just crocheting over the top of the end there. I hold it against my work and crochet over the top. I might just work an extra single crochet in this stitch here. That just keeps the work flat. Around a bend, you often need to work 2 single crochet into a stitch. And then just slip stitch into the top of the first stitch of brown and fasten off. And there's the body done. I'll just weave in those ends. For the beak, using my orange, I join the yarn in the second stitch up from the neck. So this stitch here, and I work 2 chain and 1/2 double crochet in the same stitch as a chain, and fasten off. That's just the bottom part of the beak. For the top part, I join my yarn in the same stitch as the bottom part and work 2 chain, and then I work 1/2 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, For row 2, I start with 2 chain and turn, and I work a joined half double crochet over both the stitches. So yarn around my hook, hook into the first stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around my hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and yarn around and through all the loops and fasten off. And that's the beak done. For the wing, I make a magic loop and work 2 chain and 1 half double crochet into the circle. I pull the circle tight. For row 2, I start with 2 chain. I work a half double crochet in the top of the stitch, and a half double crochet in the top of the chain from the beginning of row 1. For row 3, I start with 2 chain and turn, and I work 2 half double crochet into each of the 2 stitches. For row 4, I start with 1 chain and turn. I work a single crochet into the first stitch, 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the following stitch, and 2 double crochet into the last stitch. And for row 5, I start with 3 chain and turn, and I'm going to work a double crochet cluster over all the stitches. For a double crochet cluster, I put my yarn around the hook, put my hook into the first stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take it through 2 loops. I've got 2 loops left. Then I put my yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take it through 2 loops. And I've got 3 loops left. Then yarn around the hook, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take it through 2 loops. I've got 4 loops left on my hook, and I repeat that for the last 2. Yarn around, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around and through 2 loops. I've got 5 loops then. Yarn around the hook into the last stitch, bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take it through 2 loops, and then yarn around the hook and take it through all the loops and pull it tight, and that gives your wing a nice curve at the end. Now for the neatening row, we start with 1 chain and we're going to work a slip stitch into each stitch around to neaten it, because I don't want the wing much bigger, and if I did a single crochet it would probably be a bit too big. So I'm just going to work a slip stitch into each stitch. and then just slip stitch into the first stitch. And fasten off. And that's the wing done. I'll just weave in the rest of the ends and I'll be back and we'll put it together. Now here's my pieces. To make my duck up, I just stitch the wing in there just below the neck. I don't stitch all the way around. I start from about halfway and stitch around the curve back to about halfway, and I stitch the black bead just in the center circle there. So I'll do that and I'll be back to show you the finished duck. And there's the finished duck. If you like my video, please like, subscribe and share. I'm also on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram and Twitter. The details are in the description below, along with the details on my website and the details on my Facebook group. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.